Well, good afternoon. My name is Steve Givens, and I am the executive director of the Bridges Foundation in St. Louis. We are an organization that for the past 32, 33 years has worked in collaboration with Jesuits and lay people and others to deliver the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius to people in the course of their everyday lives. And these conversations that we have about once a month on Facebook here are just designed to be just that, conversations with people who are a part of our community here in St. Louis, or are part of the larger community of people who are doing similar work. So today I am joined by my friend, I'm happy to say, Father Pham. He has he's going to tell you more about himself as we go, but he is currently the director of the relatively new Office of Ignatian Spirituality, which is based out of Denver. But he'll tell you a little bit more about the other roles that he has had over the course of time. We're going to talk for about 20 minutes about him and what he's doing, and get some insight from him. So enough of all that. Good afternoon, Hung. How are you today?
Oh, great, Steve. It's great to be with you. And like you said, it's good to see you with friends and to talk about something pretty dear to our heart. So I'm doing great. Thanks, Steve.
Good. I guess it's still morning out there in Denver. Oh no, you're in Belize right now, aren't you?
Yeah, but it's still
So,
morning. Belize and Denver are the same time zone. So we are 11 a.m.
so what are you doing in Belize right now?
I'm visiting a couple of our Jesuit scholastic, and a young priest. So that's sort of kind of my formation assistant job to kind of more come to see how my brother's doing. And yeah, so they're doing really good. And every time I have a chance to go to Belize, I go. So
Yeah, I'm going to go with you
yeah,
sometime. That'll be fun.
that'll be
Uh,
great fun.
so let's begin with just for those who don't know you, a little bit about yourself. Where'd you come from? What was your upbringing like? And what brought you not only to the Jesuits, but to, well, I guess coming to the Jesuits is a big part, obviously, of your coming to experience the spiritual exercises. But
Right.
so give us a little bit about background, how that all came together.
Sure, I'll try to do it quick. So I'm from Vietnam. I was born and raised in Vietnam. The Far Saigon, 1975. I think that's all we just know. Just recently, almost 40 years. But I think that's when my dad left the country, and then 10 years later, he sponsored my mom and the seven of us to come to Denver. So that's where we immigrate and we live and found a second home in Denver. Um, in Denver, I went to public school and really enjoyed the teachers there. And then one of the teachers that stood out, Mr. Wilbur, and he pointed me to that school and said, Hung, if you take that test, I mean, if you do well in math and science, you're going to get the scholarship, go there. Back then,
What school are you talking about?
John F. Kennedy was at high school, but this teacher pointed me to Regis U. Back then with Jesus, Regis College. He said, you
Gotcha.
go there. And back then, Steve, I couldn't write any English, let alone to get a scholarship, but I was really good in math and science. So I went just for fun. I mean, I was all set to go to the University of Northern Colorado to be a math teacher. They have a real good education program and play some tennis. I got some scholarship to play tennis. But then Mr. Wilbur pointed me to this, and this Saturday I went just for fun. I love math and science, any problem solving. I love it. So I went, and long story short, I get the scholarship to study math. So I get the tuition. I talked to the coach at Regis to play some tennis. So I get room and board. So I went to Regis, and then there I found out it's a Jesuit school. I saw priests walking around, and I grew up with priests in my parish and things like that, and confide a lot of things in me. One of the big thing though, I think the Jesuits that Regis did was, and then together with campus ministry, this alternative spring break. It took us, men and women, to go down to Mexico. Remember Mexico project, to build houses, and we there for a week, carry rocks. I mean, it's just more for fun. I think we more like, problem for the builder constructor down there, but just a lot of fun. And I think, the whole meaning of walking of, men and women for others. And I loved it. I loved the life of service. So I got, attracted to society through that, and entered society. And as the experience of novitiate, that's when my first time to experience any type of the spiritual exercise. And it's really, really changed my life. So yeah,
You
that is
mentioned to
in a
me earlier.
nutshell.
You mentioned to me earlier on that the Jesuits got you into the Jesuits without even ever giving you any kind of a retreat experience. Is that right?
That is correct. I think, Jesuit, they know I'm very active, and this silent thing is very difficult. So I don't know, purposely and things like that, but judiciously, let's just say that they kept me out of that. But very much heavy in terms of more like I attracted to society because of the service. I did the Mexico project, and then I do the Romero House, which is senior year. A group of us seniors live in the Spanish speaking barrio to tutor and just to be in the community with with the Spanish speaking community. So tutor some of the kids, and that was a great. So that's why I attracted to society, not the spiritual exercise at all.
So what happened when you finally, during that novitiate, you got to you experienced the spiritual exercises for the first time? What was that experience like, and how did they change you, do you think?
My God, tell a little funny story first. I show up to the visit, and I just hear like 30-day retreat in silence. Like a lot of younger, my classmate, and I thought they were teasing me. There's a lot of people. I was only in the country for 7.5 years, and I thought they were teasing me. And it said like 30-day retreat, and so I asked Father Mike Carter, who was the knowledge director. I said, "What is this about 30 days silent?" And he said, "Yeah, we do 30-day exercise." So it's a long story short. So preparation day and thing like that. But God, I think went through that experience for the first time really opened my eyes, and to see life it's just very different way. Just a one example, I think when as you know very well, Steve, I think the first week we do a general examen and lead up to the general confession, look what in our life. And so I this guy, Father Harder was directing me, and then go through that. And I remember doing that, and also like I realized like, how is this different than the communists? Because when I grew up in the communists, going to school, and we usually do that, the exam, we do, when we're in trouble and things like that, the teacher always give us but I think for the purpose of like watching us, like, big brothers watching you, and I was just like a little bit terrified with that. So, I talked to Father Harder, and he said, no, hung, burn that, because that's not,
Burn that idea, kind of.
burn that idea, but burn that paper, what I was doing, the exam, and then write it down, my sins and things like that. He said, burn that,
Mm.
because that's not the purpose we're doing. It's just like more how you get to know yourself and how much love. And that changed the whole way of, you could imagine, it's just like, from fear, from God is the one who, they can't wait to send me to hell, and, like watching me every moment of out of fear, and change that perspective is like, we're doing this out of love, out of like really, you know, appreciate ourselves and really going deep. It's liberating. That was a very liberating experience, Steve. So I said like, man, I wish they noticed I can play tennis better. I get a little bit more confident in myself. So, but no, that's really changed my life and my perspective and look at things. So, yeah.
Good. Well, let's move into one of the and by the way, we have a handful of viewers watching right now. I can't see exactly who they are from where I am, but if you have questions as we go, feel free to just drop them in the comment section of Facebook, and I will see them, and we'll pass them on to Hung a little bit later. So welcome, and we're glad that you're here. Um, Hung, we were talking, one of your areas that you've done some study and writing about is this idea of how the spiritual exercises can be what you call enculturated or adapted to meet people where they are. And I think that's, whether you're doing the exercises in a 30-day format or whether you're doing it over a 9-month period of time like we do in Bridges, that's so important for people to understand that even though it stems from these 16th century writings of Saint Ignatius, they are alive today and they are flexible. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by all that and what
Yeah.
people might expect?
See, I think we sometimes we get distracted with all these big words, right? Enculturation, and we kind of focus more on about culture, which is we are. I mean, let's just let we start with who we are. And I have you know the grace and the honor to kind of exposed to a lot of different cultures, and not culture in terms of countries, but like just different place where I am, in my own formation. And at the heart of the enculturation is God has been there all along. We have this incredible God who just enter in any of this what we call time, circumstances, and culture for that matter. So for us to be adapted, it's not just a fashion or just to kind of be catching this, but I think really kind of tracing, just like General Congregation 35 said, is tracing the footprints of God in our life. That God's already there in these cultures, in these moments of our life. So basically, the whole sense of, if I can just put a very simple word, enculturation mean God meet us where we are, and we will meet God with where we are. And I think Ignatius kind of unlocked this, and then through the whole history of what the whole mystery of incarnation. So you mentioned, the Ignatius at the Bath in the 16th century. We're not going back there. We're not become Ignatius. We live in 2022, and we live in our, context, our circumstances, and deeply convinced. And through the eyes of Ignatius, like God continued to work with us here. So to be enculturated, to be adapted, it just allow and to convince, like God work in my situation, wherever I am, or however ability I have. I have an hour, I have 3 days, I have 5 days, and God will meet me there. So I think that whole sense of us director, accept and allow that, and then encourage people, pointing people to that. So
Yeah, I
it's
think
more about God. Yes.
that's right. And what you just pointed out, in case people are new to this, um, as you go through the spiritual exercises, um, it's not you in a book, right?
That's
It's
right.
you and your prayer companion and the work of the Holy Spirit coming together to create this kind of and that's I think, and I'd like you to talk about it more. That's what
Yeah,
brings this idea of flexibility and to God meeting us where we are uh,
that's right.
into the process, right?
Yeah, no, I think you name it. I think Steve, the heart of it, as the exercise pointing to, is this encounter with God, with the retreating and retreating with the creator of our God. So, and then we have an incredible God. I think a lot of time I have to admit myself growing up also to a lot of pressure. I have to be something. I have to be certain places so God can meet me. The exercise really kind of say, no, let's God and I work together. Like at the place where I'm not so proud of myself, the place I don't have it together, God continue to work, and let the encounter begin there. So it's not like where I should be or I ought to be, but well, God meet me where I am.
Yeah. And you said something to me in one of our other conversations about, and I think this is a good place to move next, that
Mhm.
these exercises, they're not something that we just do. That it's about, and these are your words,
Mhm.
tasting and experiencing.
That's right.
So talk
That's
a little bit
right.
more about that.
Yeah, I think just like physical exercise. So you go to the gym, you get into the machine. I'm sure we have a coach. You have, some people not so familiar with the machine. We get, coaches or trainer to point us. And sometimes I have to admit, I think there's some of us as the director, we tend to love to talk about the machine. We love to talk, oh my God, this thing, how beautiful it is, how ancient it is, like talk about the exercise, right? How, oh my God, from, 500, tradition and how great has been helping a lot of people, all of that. But then you left, it's kind of like, no, I want to get onto that bike. I want to get in that treadmill. I want to really walk to experience myself. So the spiritual exercise like that is not talk about our faith. It's not talk about our God, but really get into that treadmill, right? Ignatius really can see like we have the spiritual muscle that we need to sentir and gustar and sentir, like just taste it, and to enter it and encounter, and then from that, then word flow out later. So we have the role as spiritual director, but I think like if we haven't let the people to have this encounter, the personal encounter, and I think that's not the exercise, and I think we fail in a way. So that's what the whole tasting and experience about.
Thank you. Yeah. What would you say to someone who's kind of on the fence? Like, I've heard about these exercises for years, or maybe I've gone on a 4-day retreat or a 3-day retreat, or an 8-day retreat, but I've never done the whole thing, whether it's a 30-day retreat or what is called the 19th annotation retreat in everyday life, which is spread out over a longer period of
Um,
time. What would you say to someone who's kind of been on the fence and they're wondering if this is the right thing for them to do? How would you explain uh, what that experience of the spiritual exercises holds for them?
no, I think a couple of things, Steve. I think as a person on the fence, and there's a reason for he or she's on the fence. I mean, first, well, if you only have time for 1 to 3, hours a day or that, and just acknowledge that, but not so much hard and then pressure yourself. But number one, I say like just be kind and gentle in a way like God will meet you there. So if you're on the fence and it's gonna say like, okay, that's where I am, that's all I have right now. And Ignatius that's very comfortable if that's where you are, then you know, you come and you ask for and people give you just more like a period of prayer, thing like that. That's great. But I think I also hear the deeper kind of desire, the deeper kind of curiosity. I want to engage more. So I think that just I would say the person just let this desire, right? That's this desire to kind of like kindle that in your heart. And then there's plenty information online of people and just ask. And then I don't know, sometimes it's the moment of grace. Like you stepping in and then I don't know. And then for me, as Mr. Wilbur point me to like Regis without me knowing, or you have friends and people just can come back and say like this really changed my life and really honest about those. And I would say people just listening and be where they are at the same time listen to their desire, you know, and then trust that and trust the sources. I mean that's
Yeah.
just that, right? So
If anybody has any, we got a few minutes left. We try to go 20 or 25 minutes or so, and we're coming up on 20 minutes. If there's anyone listening that has a question for Hung, uh, please feel free to type that in. Hung, you're going to be here in St. Louis on July 9th. We're doing Bridges is sponsoring. It's an event that we haven't had for a few years because of COVID, but it's called the Ignatian Community Retreat. It'll be held July 9th in St. Louis at Mercy Center, which is a retreat house here in St. Louis run by the Mercy Sisters. You're going to be here. It's just a 1-day retreat. And the idea that you're kicking around, you told me just right before we started, is this theme of conversion. and conversion and inversion. So do you want to talk a little bit about what might you be? I know you don't have the full retreat planned out yet, but what are you thinking about for this?
No, I think what the thing is, I think I want to say this too. I mean, sometimes we think about the exercise like it's so, you know, square and thing like that, dry and rigid. I was just gonna say to the audience, like, just come try it. It's fun. It's enjoyable. I mean, this encounter is very enjoyable, and it is, yeah, deeper in ourselves and things like that. But I think it's filled with joy. I think that's this one. And I love to play around with words because English is not my second, but that's actually my third language. And I have some Spanish and French in my own formation. So it's just kicking around this year. The Ignatian, Father General have asked us about the grace of conversion. And sometimes we can think about like so intense and everything else. So in one of conversation, with one of my Jesuit brothers, it's like conversion. Let's split that. Con is in Spanish is with. Version is like, version, what version, right? The story have a lot of versions. So I think the moment of kind of like conversion, so like, well, what version? What version we talk about? What version of our life? What version God? So I'm still playing around with that. See, that's
Right.
just the whole, yeah.
Good.
So
Well,
I
yeah.
love stories, yeah.
And that this retreat is open to everybody here in St. Louis. Some of the events that we have for Bridges are only for those who have already been through the spiritual exercises. They're continuing formation. But this one is open to everyone. So if you're listening or you know someone who you think you'd like to give them a little taste of Ignatian spirituality, a little taste of the exercises, this would be a good way to do that. Again, it's in July 9th in St. Louis. You can get more information on that. We have a question I'm going to take in a minute here, but you can get more information on any of our programs and specifically on the Ignatian Community Retreat if you go to our website at bridgesfoundation.org. Hey, Gene Dempsey, who I believe is down in Alabama, writes with this question for either of us. How might the 19th annotation be different if done remotely, for example, via Zoom versus in person? Why don't you take the question first about how do you think, or what's your experience of the differences of that experience?
Yeah, I would say all the retreats are different. All the exercises are different. 30 days or 19 annotation in person, 19 annotation versus Zoom. So I think God worked through all of these medium. I think that's important. And then Gene, I think grateful for this question is, the way you open yourself, your availability and your work and then your family, your responsibility. And God, I think Ignatius is very clear. God see our availability and generosity, and God will respond. So that's very, very key.
Yeah, and
But
I
would
would
say, go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
No.
Steve.
I was
No,
going
but
to say
I
from our own experience here in Bridges, we were kind of forced into offering our retreat online during COVID. And what we found out during that time, and the way I always put it is, God doesn't seem to care. The Holy Spirit doesn't seem to care. The Holy Spirit keeps showing up. And
right.
I think what's many people have found is if you do the retreat online, whether through us or any of our consortium partners out there, that work of two people meeting together to help one to help the other through the exercises is as alive and as real in this format as it is in person. And for some people, it's proved to be even more intimate, because they can really focus and they don't have to leave their home and those sorts of things. So there's different ways to do it, but go ahead.
But I do want to add one thing though. So God's grace is abundance and our own disposition. So think about this. Like when we go to the retreat house has conducive environment created for us to do that. I have guide people I-19 annotation in person that would take it a little bit more discipline on the retreating. Like, you have to make your home or carve out your day to make it that is your retreat house. So now you move to Zoom, that discipline could be easier. Like some people, like I'm not distracted by I'm in my room, I'm not distracted by other people. So that's the advantage. But the disadvantage is like, well, my bill is over here and my phone is like, you talk about myself, distracted by many things. Oh my God, this email. So I think it's just the discipline, right? Grace is built on nature. So the grace and then on our disposition, how much we can dispose ourselves. So I think it's take the different, I would say it takes our own discipline and how you work with closely with the director and kind of set up your rhythm, set up your setting, set up your place. I think that's the difference, not God.
Good point. Yeah, and I know that there's a couple different ways to do the 19th Annotation Retreat. Through Bridges, what we offer that some places don't is it's not just you and the writings of Ignatius and your prayer companion. It's also a community of people who are going through it at the same time. So for us, that means either weekly or monthly meetings with a small group of people that you journey with through the entire 9 months, either online or at one of our sites in St. Louis. So we offer that kind of community experience, but you certainly can do the 19th Annotation Retreat without that, with just you and your prayer companion, and of course, the work of the Holy Spirit. So listen, we are coming up on about a half hour here. Anything you want to say in closing, Hung, before we take off here?
Yeah, I think one of the things, I think I still remember, sometimes we can get intense at this, right? I still remember the experience that our Holy Father, Pope Francis, come to the aula when I was at a, GC 36. And all of us Jesuits were so, like excited. What is the mission that, Father, Holy Father gonna ask us and like that. And the first thing he asked us is like, look intensely for consolation. He said, look for joy. And I started like, just that's what, if you're looking for this 19 annotation, the spiritual exercise is truly, just looking for that joy that the Lord promises. I come to give joy, to give life and life to the full. And a little bit footnote, like Father, Holy Father always say, it's that sense of humor is the clear signs of consolation. So, so I think it's just that. I think the spiritual exercise and what we do, right, Steve? I mean, if it's not for joy, then I don't know why we're doing this. So the deep kind of joy that the Lord promises. So
I love that idea about joy and the sense of humor too, because I think one of the big gifts and graces of the spiritual exercises is a sense of wonder and a willingness to be surprised. And what surprises us more than joy, as C.S. Lewis wrote, right? We're surprised by joy. And I think an openness to that is so important. Really, I think it's important to anyone who's trying to walk in the way, but especially perhaps when you're doing the spiritual exercises.
And
well, listen, go ahead.
So, no, I think it's just like this stage. I also recognize, the pandemic, and I think the situation in our world right now, I recognize that as well too. So it's not just superficial joy and just not, but I think it's like the deep sense of joy that the world, I desperately need right now. So thank you very much, Steve.
All right, thank you, Hung. I will. I'll see you I'll see you soon. We're doing some things together this summer. So thank you all for tuning in. This will remain on our Facebook page, and it will also be on the bridgesfoundation.org website soon too. So if you missed it, you want to see it, it'll be there for you. All right, Hung. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Peace.
Steve. Okay.
Have a wonderful time in Belize. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
We're signing off now. Thank you.
Okay.